Welcome back to Podjunction Podcast, where podcasters learn to grow their business. I'm Sadaf, Beynon, and with me is Matt Edmundson.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Again. We need that.
Yeah, we still need that. Yay!
Yay! All right, so we're back again with another segment from Steven Pemberton, and we are going to be talking about authentic relationships with our guests. So you'll be learning, one, how to focus on building those relationships and not seeing them as a transaction, and two, the value of post-episode conversations.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to this. The value of post-episode conversations.
Yeah.
Okay. So, very warm welcome to you, by the way, if this is your first time with us. Great that you've joined us. Please hit that like and subscribe button and do all of those good things that enable us to keep this podcast running. Because, you know, I actually quite enjoy this one.
Yeah.
It's different format from all our other podcasts. So that's why I like it. I like the dual aspect of it. You know, the two of us, the co-host type thing. So yeah, do make sure you do that. And of course, if you're a regular to the show, warm welcome back to you as well. Thanks for showing the love, and hope you're getting some good stuff out of what we're doing. I just love podcasting. I think it's a great tool to grow your business with. And so hence the reason we do this podcast. Mm-hmm. Hence the reason we have a podcasting company, I suppose. Hence the reason we have so many podcasts. And I just need to say the word hence.
Hence. And so
henceforth moving forward, one of the things that I've said, and I'm sure it's not made it to the intro because I'm sure Josh has cut it out, but my challenge to you was to do this entire podcast in an English accent. And you were like, there's no way.
Yeah, I failed before I even started.
What's your favorite word pronounced with an English accent?
I don't know.
Because you go around saying water a lot, like you're English.
Oh, that's because I'm just copying you. But yeah, actually, you know what? Thinking about it, that was probably the first one. Because I remember, I'm just going to go on, sorry. I remember being in boarding school in Pakistan, and there was a guy from somewhere down south. I know that now, but he had this London...
Down south in English?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. This Cockney accent. And he would always be like, pass the water. Pass the water, please.
Pass the water.
So yeah, that's probably one of my first memories of it, yeah. But then, you know, you've got Scouse English. So...
You got married to a Scouser.
I did.
Yeah.
Whose accent isn't that strong, actually.
No, it's not, actually. Pass the water, mate.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm just going to go on a bit longer. I found this book in the back of my wardrobe yesterday, and it was all these Scouse phrases.
Okay.
So I gave it to my older son. I was like, here, you can have this. So they were all sitting at the dining table last night, and my husband was reading them out, and we were all trying to guess what they meant. It was not easy or straightforward.
Did Jeff get them, though? Being a Scouser, or was he actually, some of these just don't make any sense?
Well, he found it funny, but it's not stuff that he thinks actually makes sense.
Right. Okay. Fair play. Yeah, we've had things like the Scouse Bible.
Yeah.
Learn Yourself Scouse. That was another book that we had when we moved in, which was great. Have you seen? We should probably get into the clip in a minute. But speaking of the Cockney accent, if you haven't seen it yet, can I encourage you to go watch the clip of Chris Pratt?
Yeah.
Who's the Star-Lord, isn't he, from the Marvel movies, the Guardians of the Galaxy? Yeah. So go watch Chris Pratt on the Graham Norton talk show.
Okay.
Doing his impression of The Only Way is Essex.
Okay.
Yeah. Towie. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it. Just Google Graham Norton, Chris Pratt, The Only Way is Essex, and it will come up, right? And he does the most perfect Towie accent. Because apparently when he was recording, they were living in London, and his wife really got into this show.
Yeah.
And so he just picked up the accent, and it's hysterical. So you'll enjoy that little treat.
Cool.
Anyway, before we get off too far on accents, Steve Pemberton.
Yeah.
Should we get into his clip?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. We'll be back after this clip. Here we go.
Can we shift gears a little bit and talk maybe about how you've leveraged your podcast to grow your business?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is something right from the get-go, right from the beginning that I've done. And what's interesting, because of being on a guest on so many shows, is I was a guest on shows that had well over 200 episodes. I was a guest on a show that had over 1,000 episodes. So that's a lot of time. And I remember when I first started out, I mean, I was not very many episodes in, maybe 5 or 6, and I'd already gotten a client out of it. And I have a friend that he was well over 200 episodes, shut down his podcast because he had never gotten anything out of it. And the biggest difference I noticed between me and people that I've guested on their podcast is I just take a little extra time afterwards. And a lot of times when people that are hosts after a show, they'll just sit there and say, hey, Steven, thank you so much. It was amazing. You did great. Here's next steps. So next steps is in 2 weeks, your show will be coming out on this day. We're going to send you all the material through email. If you wouldn't mind, just promote it. If you wouldn't mind, just put it up on Instagram. Here's some posts. And it's like, okay, that's great. You're giving me the logistics of what's next. And then it's like, okay, see you later. But you didn't actually discover, is there anything that we could do together? I have been sitting with you for an hour. You have built trust with me. I've built trust with you. So you can discover, it's like, hey, Steven, I know you said you're in e-commerce. I heard your story. It was great. I'm actually starting my store, or I actually have my store. Is there a way for us to work together? And if we were to work together, what would that look like? And because now you're having a candid conversation, there's not a sales mechanism happening. And if you're trying to get clients, if you're like, hey, Steven, I heard that you are doing B2B e-commerce. I actually have been doing, for the last 10 years, I actually have been working with companies just like yours to get appointments set. And I heard that was one of the areas that you were kind of struggling in. Do you think, it's like, maybe we could talk about a way for us to do that together? And it's like, okay, at least I'm interested because I'm there. Like, I trust you more than some random person who reached out to me on LinkedIn. You've built trust with me. So for me, that's what I do after every show, is I just want to discover who I've taken time to hear about you, your business. At the end of my show, I'm always asking, it's like, what is one thing that you're overcoming in your life or your business right now? So I already know a struggle. And then for me is it's not about making a sale. For me, at the end of my show afterwards, it's okay. So you're struggling with your mental health. I know this great person. This is someone you need to talk to. Or I know this great book. My ideals is I want to make sure to help them solve their problem. Not I want to get them to give me money. But I have found that doing it that way is the best way for you to be able to get clients, to be able to get more business, for you to get a stronger network, for you to have people that you can lean on. Yeah. You got to realize, especially if you're going to do this for a longer term than the next 90 days, when you're having all these guests on, is you want to build that network. So if you take a little bit of time afterwards, pouring into them, you've already learned some of their woes, you can help solve that. If you can solve that and your business can solve that, it's like, hey, I hear this. I hear that you're saying that this is one of the biggest issues you're walking through. This is actually something that we do, and I know that we do it well. And then they're willing to discuss. So for me, with that, those were the areas that I've just seen grow my network. It's grown my business. And it's been really fun to do it in that way.
That's really interesting. So do you then research your guests in a particular way when you've got this thought in the back of your head that you're going to ask them, how can we do business together, or how can we work together, or, that kind of thing? When you're researching your guests, do you have that? Are you thinking about those kinds of things?
No. So I'll be candid. Okay. I have a buddy that he does the podcasting thing on a large scale where but for him is what he does is he helps other people set up their podcast. And it is very much a sales funnel where from the Calendly link, you get on there and it's like, what is your monthly revenue marks? What did you do last year? Okay. So what is your biggest problem? This is you scheduling to be on a podcast. When I go through those, I hate those. Because I know that it's trying to be a sales thing. And then when you do get on those shows, it is like, okay, Steven, so you said that you were making $100,000 a month in revenue. So what do you think is keeping you from making $200,000 a month? Okay, so that one thing, if there was somebody who could help you solve that one thing, would you be willing to pay them? It's like, I didn't know that I'm getting interviewed live. This is going to go out. Like, I'm getting recorded. There's a sales call recorded live that you're going to be trying to sell me. And so for me, the way that I do it, now, granted, I think that there's absolutely, for me, room for improvement on the guest side and just doing more research to understand who they are, what their business is, what they're walking through, to see before they even get on the show, is there something that I can do to help them? But normally, for me, when they get on the show, is I just want it to be organic. I don't want to show up with a preconceived notion that, hey, I know that your sales suck and I can help you get better at sales. So the whole time I'm asking you questions, it's like it's rabbit holing you down to where you realize it's like, oh man, I'm not actually good at sales, or my sales are low. And then after the show, I'm telling you, it's like, hey, so I know the whole time that we talked that you were talking about how sales have just been abysmal for the last 6 months. Yeah. But for me, is I want it to be organic, a real conversation, because if you can have it be a real conversation, you can find what actually ails them. But people are smart. I think that we don't give people enough credit, and people can pick up on your energy. So they can tell if you are like a shark in water and they've got a little paper cut, they can tell if they feel like that you are smelling blood and water. So with that, what I mean by that is like, they can tell if the only thing that you see them as is a transaction. For me, it's all about relationship. So for me, is if I can build a relationship through the call and discover what it is that they need through that podcast conversation, the afterwards conversation is so much better, especially when they don't feel like a transaction. There's people that they'll introduce me to. There's people that I'll introduce them to. And I've just seen the power of that over a long enough time horizon.
If that got you curious and you want to catch the full episode, be sure to subscribe to the show. We've got plenty more great conversations coming up.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Love that. I'm loving the Steve Pemberton
Yeah, he's
thing.
Great.
He's such a full-on guy, isn't he? In so many ways, is brilliant. So I'm loving the series. I can't wait for that. I've not actually heard the full interview.
No, you haven't.
So I'm looking forward to that. I subscribe to this show because, I fast forward the bits where I'm talking. So I really like the full interviews. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. That's cool, man. What did you get out of that?
All right. So can't really read my notes because I can't really write that well, but
that's because you've got a
Fused wrist.
Yeah.
So a few things. First, I'll just go in order of what I've written down. I thought it was interesting that how one of his friends who didn't make any kind of
episodes and didn't do anything.
Yeah, and he just shut it down.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting.
It's a little bit sad, really.
Yeah, because I think...
It's episode 200.
Yeah. And I think like going back to like what he said right at the end about it being a transaction.
Yeah.
So if you don't see it like that and just see it as a relationship building, even if you're not getting any clients out of your podcast, it's still a great tool to be able to network and to meet people and to talk about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. I was really surprised actually when I heard that they got to episode 200 and nothing. You've got to question what's going off there. I think if you've got to episode 20 and there's nothing really going on, something's not right. Mm-hmm. And it depends how you define success, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose. And I think you have to be super clear on what that means in relation to your business, in relation to your services, and what that means for you. But I think it was just a bit sad. There's obviously something's not quite right, and it's not that I don't think it would. And I'm saying this having never met him, never talked about the podcast, and I could be entirely wrong. I appreciate that. But it sounds to me like it wasn't a podcast issue. It was just more of the way that the podcast was done issue. Because I still think podcasting is a really good tool for doing what you want to do, and I was a little bit surprised by that. But, obviously horses for courses and all that sort of stuff. But Stephen, I think it's quite interesting how he identified what people typically do at the end.
Yeah.
Having been on so many podcasts. And actually, when I think about the podcasts I have been on, I would say this is probably true 95 times out of 100. The podcast ends. We'll let you know when it's going to go out. Please share the links. Goodbye. And to be fair, I've probably been guilty of that myself on fair occasions, because I think if you're close to deadline in terms of time, you've got the top of the hour and you've only got 3 minutes and they want to get off. I think it's easy to do that. Yeah. But I don't think it's necessarily the best way.
Yeah, but I was thinking about that. Like, I think, we always ask them, do you have a hard finish time?
Yeah.
And so we make sure they're off the call by then. But I think, like, would it be worth finishing the interview that a few minutes before that so you have that post-episode conversation with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that, and I mean, even if your podcast is shorter in length. So having experimented with this a little bit. So if you've got an hour slot, rather than doing a 50-minute podcast, do a 40-minute podcast and give yourself 10 minutes. Even if they don't want to talk at the end, you've not really lost anything. But I think if you say, right, actually, our hardline is on the hour, that means the podcast has to be finished by either 1:45 or 10 to the hour. Because I need some space at the end to have a conversation. Yeah. And it's just a discipline then, isn't it? And I think it's a really good way to structure it. And it's a really good thing to do is to structure that final 10 minutes. Yeah. I was moaning about a coffee. It's not really, is it related? Yeah, it's probably related. But I was in a coffee shop the other day.
Drinking tea.
Yeah, drinking tea because I don't do coffee. But I was in a coffee shop the other day in Beynon in town, and I really like it. If you're ever in Liverpool one, go to Beynon Coffee Shop. Shout out to those guys; they're awesome. And every coffee shop has got the same thing, right? You go through this process. You stand in line. You walk past something which is usually full of treats.
Impulse buy.
You get to the till. You know what you want it to buy. You're greeted usually by someone who's very happy, very smiley, very genuine, very nice. And they're like, what do you want? And at Bean, I show them my little app that gets the reward points, and it's all great. And I've walked past the treats and I feel good because I've not bought one. You know, as much as they would like me to have bought one. And as I'm ordering, maybe I've interacted a little bit with the person on the checkout. That whole experience is good, right? There is a point to this, I promise. What happens next? In every single coffee shop, what happens next? You wait. And it's like everybody in the coffee shop sector has thought about the experience right up until the point that I've paid, right? Yeah. We always complain about this in e-commerce, you know. Everybody's like, we've got conversions, we've got to look at the website, we've got to do this and that and all the... Right up until the point they've paid. And then after you've paid, it's like... Oh, okay, we're not interested.
You can't really abandon cart at that point in a coffee shop, can you?
No, you just go stand over there and wait. And it's the most dull, uninteresting experience. And it's like no one's ever thought about it. No one's gone, how can I make this so good that they're so excited? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how can I improve this experience? I don't know what the answer is because I don't run a coffee shop. But what I know is it's not what it is. And I think it's the same with podcasting, right? Everybody thinks... and invest so much time and energy right up until the podcast has ended. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's our pay point. That we've got the transaction done, we've recorded the podcast, and then it's just all a bit flat after, all a bit dull and dreary. And I kind of think Stephen's right in the sense of if you can do something interesting in those 10 minutes. And I think I need to actually thinking it through. I need to get better at this because sometimes I just get so engrossed in the conversation that I run it right up until the max time. Yeah.
He was talking also about talking to the guest about how can we help you as a business. So, you know, that kind of a transaction as well. But I think that would be something worth doing. Like you've just mentioned it for all hosts to be thinking about what would those questions be? Because for everyone, those would be different. Yeah. So I was thinking about what I do with Podjunction because I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to really help them because we're all doing the same thing. But because I'm learning, this is still early days for me. My question is always, can you give me some feedback on how that was? And I find that it's gold for me. And so making that time for it, and I found there's some guests that were just really gracious with their time and would just hang out and just kind of go deeper. And others were you could tell by the body language, I'm looking at the time, I want to go. Yeah. So just I don't ask or,
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting question. But you're right. I think creating that space, having those questions that aren't hard sell questions. No. I think one of the questions I like to ask people is, how can I help you? Right? It opens so many doors. They know who I am. They know what we do. And just saying to the guests, listen, you've been on the show. Really appreciate the value that you brought. I thought that was great, the way you shared ... Giving them feedback as a guest. Just giving them, a lot of gratitude. And then just following that up, going, listen, how can I help you, man? What's one or two things maybe that I could do to help you? What would that look like? And when I don't do it every time after every podcast, but when I do that, it just sparks some really interesting conversations. And we do get stuff like, yesterday I recorded with Lucy too. I said in the last podcast that yesterday I recorded with Lucy too. It's not because I've recorded 2 podcasts with Lucy at all. It's just because we batch record these, right? It's trade secrets. So we record 2 every time. But yesterday a week ago, I did a podcast with Lucy, and we spent probably 40 minutes chatting after the podcast had ended. And it was a really lovely and wonderful conversation. And I hope it, and Lucy might tell me otherwise, but I hope it was helpful for her. And it all came down to, Lucy, how can I help you? And it just sparked. So I think know your guest hard deadline is one.
Yeah.
Schedule some time at the end of schedule some time in that to have a post podcast conversation. Try and be helpful in a way that makes sense for you and your business, whether it was like Steven, whether the way I do it, whether it's the way Sadaf does it. Experiment, figure out what works for you, and then just have those conversations. And then the other thing that I would say is, one of the things I learned yesterday is the podcast recording ended in the calendar. I can't remember the exact time. I think it was like 3:30. And then I had another podcast recording scheduled at 4, which meant I had to cut short the conversation I was having with Lucy. And I think in hindsight, it would have been nice to have had a bit more time. And so I guess my learning in all of this as we're talking and I'm thinking it through, I think I'm going to schedule at least an hour between podcasts if I can, with the scheduling software that we have. Just so if these post-podcast conversations do start happening, I've got the space and capacity to help people and to do some stuff there. So, yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. What else was in your notes?
Are you comfortable with the silence, Matt? Just checking.
Yeah, we're talking about that. We talked about that last week, being comfortable with silence.
I can't read whatever.
I'm only ever comfortable with silence when you're thinking of a really good deep answer. So
sorry.
If that's what's coming, then great. If not, come on, get a move on.
Was there something here I wanted to ask about?
Your microphone's in the
Yeah, sorry. Okay. I cannot read what I've written.
You can't read your own writing?
Yeah. With
your fooshed wrist?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, I guess actually I can ask you a question that I can kind of read. Have you been on a podcast where afterwards you felt like it was a bit of a sales conversation, or even on the podcast? Because that's something Steven experienced. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you get invited onto podcasts, and I tend to say yes to maybe 80% of the requests that I get. There are some where I'm just like, no, I'm not interested. But I tend to say yes to about 80% of the requests. And I would say probably about 10% of them are, in effect, sales pitches. And I'm polite. I deliver value, but then I get off the call quick. Yeah. And you know what? None of them are in my phone. I'm not still connected with them. I'm not still talking to them. There are podcasts that I've been invited on as a guest and have ended up buying things from them. But that's usually because, again, like I think about Dan Badai, he does some of our email marketing in one of our ecom businesses. And so Badai Media is a company that we do that with. He invited me onto the podcast. We had a great conversation. We stayed in touch. He just said, listen, Matt, how can I help you? We do these free audits if you're interested. It wasn't a sales pitch. It was just literally a one-line throwaway. And I'm like, yeah, sure, man. Why not? Let's see what comes out of it. And then out of that, we ended up hiring him. And Daniel and I are still in touch. I think you emailed. Sorry, Daniel, I've not responded to your email. I really should. But so there have been occasions where I've bought stuff off people. And then there's been occasions where I've been on the podcast. They've not told me anything about themselves or any way that they can help me. And so the podcast kind of ends. And again, you don't really stay in touch with those kind of folks. The ones that I'm in touch with, that I'm still connected with, usually are the ones that took the time to just have a chat after the podcast, or they have stayed in touch intentionally themselves. I'm thinking like Norm Farrar, right? So Norm, he does an ecom podcast. I think it's an Amazon podcast, actually. Norm's great. Got a massive beard. Good branding.
That is his branding.
It is his branding, yeah. He's been on EP, but he invited me onto his podcast first. We had a great conversation. He was super kind, super generous. We had a good chat afterwards. We've stayed in touch. I got him on the podcast. He's invited me back onto his podcast several times, which is another great way to keep...
He's got sorry, I'm cutting you off. Do you want to finish?
I was just going to say it's a great way to stay connected. Invite them back.
Sorry.
But what were you going to say?
I was going to say he's got a new podcast that he wants you on.
Oh, okay.
I spoke to him the other day, and he's going to be coming on Podjunction too.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. He's asked me to actually do some content for something as well.
Oh, maybe.
I can't remember. Anyway. So yeah, getting people to do some extra stuff is always helpful. We found with EP, actually, if you have a great guest saying, listen, we've got a little community over here. Would you fancy doing an hour-long teaching session on this, which is super practical? A lot of people say yes. So these kind of asks increase value, and they increase relationship in so many ways. And so definitely worth doing. The other thing that I've found, or I'm finding, and so you'll know this because I've requested some changes, is that actually I get everybody's WhatsApp number now. And rather than just emailing in confirmations and stuff like that, actually I am going to say, listen, whoever, Fred, we've got a podcast. Looking forward to that tomorrow. And starting the WhatsApp conversations as well, because I think it's so much better than email. And maybe invite them into a WhatsApp group and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's a really interesting idea. But
also on that, for you in particular, that's a touch point that you don't already have, because I'm doing all the pre-calls.
Yes.
So you don't really meet them until you have the recording. So to have that is good.
Yeah, it's super important to create that connection. And also I think post, like a week ago when I was interviewing Lucy, I just sent her a WhatsApp message after the call, and it's so much nicer, so much more personal, I think. And why not? You know, why not do that? So yeah, that's something that we're trying. Well, I'll keep you up to date if I've not mentioned it in a few weeks' time. Just prod me and see how we're getting on. But I feel like that's going to also create these kind of connections in these post podcast conversations. Yeah.
You mentioned Daniel Badai.
Yeah.
So he's been on this podcast just, early days. You don't remember?
He was. Yeah. No, because I did the original interview.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said in that was that he does this free audit, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he kind of showcases his expertise as well as, alongside the podcast. He's also showing them, this is what we can do for you as a business. So that's another way, isn't it, to have those post-episode conversations.
It really is, and it's worked well for Dan.
Very well.
The free audit thing has worked well for him, because a lot of people, I don't know how many people, maybe 1 in 3 say yes. I don't know what his closure rate is on those. I think we covered it actually in the interview, but it's a really great way of doing it. If you've got something like, so he does email marketing, so actually doing an audit of someone's email marketing, go, actually, this is great, this could be improved, this is how you would improve it. If you need any help, let us know, is a really interesting way. It takes a bit of time, but I think if you've got a good quality client, who's your ideal market, it's a good way to do it. And so why would you not, right? And trialing that, I think, is super helpful. Yeah. So I know he's killed it with that. I think he's done super well. And I don't know, actually, I need to catch up with him. I don't know if he's still doing super well. It's probably been a year since I had that conversation with him.
I think a bit more.
Is it a bit more than a year? Yeah, probably.
So you should check in.
I should probably check in with Dan. Maybe get him back on the show. Dan, part 2. How it's going with the free audit. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Awesome. Anything else?
No.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, if you would like to get in touch, we would love to hear from you. And if you are, thinking about doing your own podcast and you haven't really started yet, or you're like the chap that's struggling with the 200 episodes, do get in touch. We would love to hear from you. Well, Sadaf would, who heads up Podjunction.
I would.
And she'll make her magic. I don't even know what I was going to say. But do get in touch. We would love to hear from you. You can find out more at the website podjunction.com. You can reach out to us on social media as well. All of those links will be in the show notes. But yeah, that's it from me. That's it from you.
It is.
Excellent. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode at Podjunction. If you've enjoyed the insights from this episode and want to hear the full conversation with today's special guest, don't forget to visit podjunction.com, where you'll find more information about how you can join Podjunction cohort. Whether you listened while on the go or in a quiet moment, thank you for letting us be a part of your day. Remember, every episode is a chance to gain insights and to transform your business with podcasting. So keep on tuning in, keep on learning, and until next time, happy podcasting.